Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be discussing the Jordan 1 Silver Toe once again. Specifically, we'll be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Jordan 1 Silver Toe and why that is. To preface this, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications just so you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like shock drops, raffle lists, Sitelists, etc., such as the Jordan Reserves we just recently saw and all the exclusive access, be sure to follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and personals for you. This way, you're always in the loop 24/7 whenever there is a restock or drop. For those of you who don't know, the Jordan 1 Silver Toe is set to release on February 19th, tomorrow in the US. Europe has already dropped these, and if you happen to be watching this video after the drop, obviously you already know this. Retail is $170 for women's, $80 for preschool, and $60 for toddler, but we'll only be focusing on the women's sizes today. Be sure to watch my How to Cop guide if you have not yet, and you are watching this before the drop, but otherwise, let's continue. In order to determine if the Jordan 1 Silver Toe will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop, and also when shipments come in, essentially the pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at for these in terms of holding? Not the retail to resell initial margin, but rather just the hold margin over X period of time. Basically, are these going to be worth your time? Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at certain points in time. To begin with, stock for all sizes combined worldwide is just around what we normally see for Jordan 1 highs at around 110,000 pairs, so not extremely limited, but also certainly not an easy cop at all, especially with this kind of demand that we're seeing right now. With that said, the demand on these is very, very high. The bids are all very, very healthy, and there's a significant amount of them, and the sale volume is absolutely ridiculous for a pre-drop item, at least for the US. However, this is also due to the fact that Europe has already dropped and there was exclusive access as well. We'll talk more about why that's actually a good thing later, at least for the post-drop effect. Therefore, as discussed in the How to Cop video, I'm personally going to be going for all women's sizes, as I do expect them to be very profitable with a very good margin. Now, regarding a specific range, prices have been declining over the past week, which is completely normal since people are just unloading the early pairs. In fact, this is even elevated even more since all Europe pairs and early access pairs are already in circulation, and there's a lot of them. Since it's the night before the drop though, I don't expect any drastic changes leading up to 10 a.m. Eastern time. It should stay around this $280 range right before 10 a.m. Eastern time. However, we will see a more notable change post US drop. This is when we will experience what I like to refer to as, you know it, the impulsivity effect. You guys know what I'm talking about by now since we discussed this very frequently, yet it still almost always occurs. We discussed it on the Carmine release, for example. Prices were around $260, and I did mention that they should shoot up to around the $285 range, while they actually even managed to climb even higher than that into the $290 range. And of course, now, as predicted, they are coming back down as pairs are going into circulation. But regarding the impulsivity effect, if you haven't watched any of my hold or sell videos in the past, sneaker drops specifically impact human impulsiveness significantly after an individual fails to acquire that desired products due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see about a 10% increase of the pre-drop prices, so that $280 that I was mentioning before. This isn't always the case, but majority of the time it is, and it should be the case on these as well. During the morning of the 19th, after all drops occur, and until late afternoon and evening, we should then see a pretty solid premium for these. Sometimes I don't always feel it will have a 10% increase, such as the Volt Gold, which I did mention wouldn't see that much since demand wasn't that high, but with this amount of demand for these silver toes, I could definitely see a 10% increase at least. In fact, I'd even say these have potential for more than 10% increase since the current prices are already impacted by all Europe pairs and early access pairs all in circulation already. Since that is already priced into the market, it can only help the impulsivity effect take place. So it's very possible we may even see a 12% or more rise from these. We'll stay conservative though and use 10% regardless. So assuming these are around a conservative 280 on average right before the drop, prices could very well end up settling around $300 to $310 on average. As mentioned, larger sizes will do better since they are a women's Jordan 1, so smaller sizes will be lower than that range that I did mention, while some largers will be of course higher than that. Keep this number in mind because we'll be revisiting this number as usual when discussing what the most optimal times to sell at are. Keep in mind these will just be a temporary price from the post-drop effect. Now let's discuss what price it will look like once shipments go out in that 1 to 2 week range. During this period, the vast majority of pairs will be going into circulation, aside from the amount of pairs that already went out through exclusive access, in-store pairs, and even those outside of the US like I was discussing earlier. When it comes to these high stock pairs, the effects are normally very noticeable, often around up to 15%, but considering many were already in circulation from the Europe and early access drop, and demand is very high, I'd side closer to the lower end of that 15% range, so we can use 12% as our amount of decrease, just like we did for the Carmine release. This should leave prices slightly lower than the pre-drop prices, potentially as low as $270 on average. Remember, some sizes will be more than that, such as the larger size, while some may be less as well. But now with the average price ranges at those points in time evident, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over time. Traditionally, Jordan 1s with very high demand always tend up increasing over time, and I don't really see these being much different. The only time this isn't the case is when a Jordan 1 is overbought. That is what we saw on the Jordan 1 Satin, for example. However, I do not expect this increase to be for quite a while. Unlike the Mocha, which we discussed a while back, which was rather quickly as expected, I do believe these will plateau for a few months, but that doesn't exactly mean they'll keep going down. So overall, I do expect these to increase from that post-shipment range, but I think it'll take a little longer than usual for these specifically, mainly because of how high these are already going to be selling at and the type of demand we're seeing on these. Yes, it is very high, but it's nowhere near that Mocha type range. It's a pretty similar situation to what we saw on the Jordan 1 Satin snakeskin. In fact, I'd even argue there was more demand for those satin snakeskins. I actually think that it's only a matter of time for those snakeskins until we start seeing a more consistent increase for those, but you must keep in mind how long it's already been since those have dropped. It's been a very long time. So amazing demand, yes, by all means, just like these silver toes, but they were already pretty high in value, and the demand wasn't anything absolutely insane like what we saw in the Mochas, for example. Amazing demand, yes, just like these silver toes, but they were already pretty high in value, so it definitely did take a little while before that plateau did start to end. So finally, regarding the hold margin on these, essentially the price you could have gotten versus the price in say 12 to 14 months, aka are these actually worth your time? Although I do believe that these will eventually see an increase in value over time, I do believe it may take a little longer than we usually see for most Jordan 1s, mainly because of how high they are already, and the demand isn't anything absolutely insane to justify that already very high price. I can see these eventually peaking close to what we see on the Fearless Jordan 1, so that would be in the upper $300 range to low $400 range. However, if you were to sell these during the impulsivity effect while prices were around that $310 range, it's still only going to be about $100 increase from there, which by all means is not terrible. It's an extra 25% or 30% or so, but what I don't like is how long it's going to be taking to get to that point in time. So while yes, these should definitely see an increase eventually, I will personally be quick selling my pairs during the impulsivity effect before the majority of pairs going into circulation, very similar to the Carmines we discussed not too long ago, and it's mostly due to the fact that I think it'll take a while for these to start increasing past that $310 range, which I could get right after the drop instead. So regarding the quick selling on the day of the drop, you could obviously do this for all in-store pairs you cop, but for online pairs from Nike, you will have to select a 2-day shipping option, which is another $5, which isn't really the end of the world, of course. And then you will, of course, have to watch the tracking number so you could time your StockX or GOAT sale, since they only do give you 2 business days. Some sites like Finish Line, JD, or even Foot sites for certain locations normally do ship within several days anyway, so that is quite nice. However, for those orders that may arrive in longer times than that, because of course there are some retailers that take forever, you can list those on eBay as a pre-order with 30-day handling enabled, so you could still try to take advantage of that impulsivity effect. Now, for those of you who can't do any of the above with your online orders and prefer not to use eBay, if they hypothetically end up going down to around 270 once all pairs are in circulation, and again, some pairs may be even lower than that if you have smaller sizes, then the amount of extra profit when these do peak would be around the $130 range rather than the $100 range. But even then, I wouldn't exactly say that these are the ideal hold. Yes, they'll go up, but there's a million fish in the sea to choose from. Also, just a note in general, for anyone considering holding anything at all who does so happen to have low capital, you should never hold anything in general if you don't have sufficient capital to go for as many drops as possible at your full potential without holding back. If you need money to go for all drops that are profitable, try to sell these during the impulsivity effect. So to conclude, I ended up rating this a 5.5 out of 10 hold, which is just barely above average. If you sell during the impulsivity effect, you might be missing out on 25 to 30% extra profits, while if you were to wait for shipments, maybe the retailer you're buying from takes a long time to get to you and you don't want to sell on eBay, you'll miss maybe around a 35% or more range during a 1 to 2 year span. Personally, that's not really an ideal amount for myself, but it's by all means not terrible, so I'll be trying to still sell these fast, even though in general they will be increasing eventually. What's always most important is whether or not they're actually worth your time, because again, I keep on saying this, there are thousands of fish in the sea in this market. So I also wanted to mention, since the last 2 videos for holding or selling I made were shoes I did plan to quick sell, like this pair and the Carmines, I'm sure a lot of you might be wondering, hey Keith, what are some shoes that you actually think are better holds than these? So just to discuss 2 that I really like at the moment, the Jordan 1 Mid Signal Blue Grade School and also the Jordan 1 Mid Turf Orange Grade School. I'm a big fan of both of those, and perhaps I'll even make a full video on these if you guys would like that. But anyway, that will conclude it for today. Good luck on this drop, or congrats if you already copped those. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, or you perhaps learned a thing or two. Subscribe and enable post notifications just to stay 100% updated on all hyped sneakers. Remember, if you guys need proxies or Nike sneakers accounts, be sure to check the links in the description for TARS and Kip proxies. And of course, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and personals for you, so you're always 100% updated on everything. With that though, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck on all upcoming drops.